Hello, everyone. Oh, it's great to be here. My name's Jillian Carson Jackson. I'm the current president of the Nautical Institute, and it's my honor and my pleasure to be here with you on this session, Women Who Were First, Paving the Way, Widening the Road. What a great title for the session. I really love that vision, this vision of a narrow path, a track through the snow, perhaps, or through a field of grass. Just think of it. A single path, a line of footsteps that you're trying to follow. It's narrow, it's ill-defined, and sometimes you lose your way. I know, I often felt like that. I often felt that I was lost and lonely in my role in maritime. Yet, there were always those who were there, who went before me, those who laid down this initial track, who provided that path for me to follow, who provided me with hope. In maritime, when I think of first, I often think of Victoria Drummond, the first female engineer in the UK. It was in 1927 that she qualified as a second engineer, but she could only ever work as a fifth engineer. It wasn't until 1959 that she was actually able to sail as a chief engineer. I think of Anna Shetinya, the first woman to serve as a captain on an ocean-going vessel in 1935. I think of Captain Molly Cool, who was the first female master mariner in Canada. She received her papers in 1939. Through the decades, we have seen so many firsts. But what does it mean to be first? And how can we work to widen that narrow track, to pave the way to full diversity inclusion in the maritime industry? So I feel so grateful to those who have gone before, those who were powerful women in maritime, and those who have forged a path for me and for others to follow. If you can see it, you can believe it, and then you can be it. It is such a pleasure and a privilege to be here amongst this group of amazing maritime professionals. I look at the breadth and the depth of expertise in this conference, and I'm humbled by the opportunity to speak with these women who were first, women who paved the way, who widened the path, that very narrow little trail, and made it opportunities for others to follow within this industry. So welcome to you all. And I'd like to start with short introductions. I'm going to pass to each of you. You could each introduce yourself a few minutes about your role in maritime and your first. I'm going to pass first to Harjit. So over to you.
Thank you, Jillian. You've given a fantastic introduction, which really paves the way for today's session. So I'm Harjit Joshi. I am the chairperson and managing director of the National Shipping Company of India, which happens to be the largest shipping company. We own 59 vessels with a DWT of 5.311. I also happen to be handling the portfolio of director finance in the company. So it's not one role. I'm playing two roles in the company simultaneously. I also happen to be the managing director of India Ports Global Limited and the chairperson of India Ports Global Chabar Free Zone. And I happen to be the first in all the four roles. And I feel a little amazed. I would say I feel a little embarrassed that in this day and age, in the 21st century, I have to say I'm the first in all these four. Thank you. I think that's the brief introduction I'd like to do.
Thank you. And it's so true. It's almost embarrassing to say that we are the first when I think of the decades of effort that have gone before us. I'd like to pass now to Sonali, and if you could introduce yourself a little bit.
Hi, Jillian. Thank you so much. And as the background has already been laid by Mrs. Harjit, that, this is the only platform where we are really focusing on why we need to celebrate the women who were first in maritime. So I would like to first extend my thanks to Maritime SheEO and Sanjam in particular for giving me this opportunity to present my views. And good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all the participants who are operating from various zones and who are joining us. So if I have to share my experience that what makes me the first one. So like any other +2 level pass out, I too was wondering what would be the best career option. But I did have this, from the beginning only I had this defined streak in me, which always prompted me to go against the tide. And in India around that time, this is to say the early 90s or earlier the mid 90s, the feminist movement was just catching up. And, I just found myself so naturally inclined and I was so able to, connect to that. In India at that time, there were no women in Merchant Navy, but I definitely had some family members in Merchant Navy. And so I was truly in awe of a career at sea. And then thereafter I applied for a career and to the maritime colleges, and I got an opportunity to join a maritime college as a marine engineer. And I was like, wow, this was what I always wanted to do. So there I was, the first marine engineer in India. I sailed until I got my chief engineer's license. After that, I moved ashore, and subsequently I served as a manning superintendent. I thereafter changed the company and joined the offshore sector with Samson Maritime. But currently, I am with the National Classification Society, that is the Indian Register of Shipping. And here also, I would say that currently, I think I am the only marine surveyor in India. So that again by itself is self-explanatory that, why we need to speak of this more often. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And it is so important that we speak of this and we share our experiences. And actually, with that experience at sea, let's go to another experience at sea and to Valeria. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your experience in being first?
Well, good morning. First of all, thank you very much for the invitation. Well, let me introduce myself. I am Commander Valeria Sorrenti from Uruguayan Navy. I currently hold the position of Commanding Officer of Minesweeper Audaz. I am 39 years old. I am married and I have 2 children. And I also have a degree in naval systems, and I am also accountant from the University of the Republic. I am member of WISTA Uruguay. And well, I joined the Naval Academy in 1999 as a student of the preparatory course. At that time, female students were only allowed to enroll in the merchant marine courses, not for the Navy career. And at the end of this year, I have been achieved a scholarship to the academy, but I was unable to sign up because women were not allowed to enter the officer career. Given this inconvenience, I proceeded to make a request for an exception. And at the end of their recruitment period, they informed me that the appliance was accepted me. And well, I'm here. And nowadays, after 22 years old, I'm still in the Navy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And isn't it amazing to think that in this day and age that we're still told as women that you can't do that. And you've proven that, yes, you can do that.
Yes, it's you have to put all your efforts and your, I don't know, everything of you to make that what you want. That's all. And also when I want to be on board, I love to be on board. And first of all, and it's what's difficult because Navy doesn't have females on board, and it's difficult. The accommodations were difficult, but we can do it. I think we can do it.
I think we have. Well, you have. Thank you so much. I'd like to go now to Sadan. Can you introduce yourself a little bit, please?
Hi, Jillian. Hi, everybody. First of all, I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm Sadan Kaptanoglu. I am a ship owner and a shipyard owner. I am a part of a family business, and my family is in shipping more than 100 years. I have to say I am first in many ways because, you know, although we have a heritage of shipping and we have very strong ladies in the family, I'm the first woman from the family who decided to work in the family business. And so half of my career was almost like, oh, are you still here? And the other half was like, you know, you are so valuable, you know, do you really want to have the, you know, have children? Now I'm very happily have 2 kids and I'm still married. And I think that is a very high achievement for a you know, shipping woman, I have to say. And in my family, we have, you know, one of the mottos in the family was serve the community that, you know, you are in. So I started to, you know, work in the first national associations and then the international associations. And I have to admit, I really enjoy serving the community. And it started as national. So I was in the board of directors of Chamber of Shipping. And then also I was in the board of Turkish Marine Environmental Protection Association. And then in 2016, I became the first woman president in TÜRMEPA, which is our environmental association. And then 2019, because, you know, I think it is almost same time I was starting to TÜRMEPA as a board of directors, I was invited to BIMCO, to the board and the executive committee. And 2019, I became the first woman of the largest ship owners association in the world. And that time, BIMCO was 114 years old. And so that was a genuinely historic moment, because I also have to thank my fellow men, because the most of the people who vote for me, they were men. So it was a historic moment, not only for women, I would say, it was for men as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And that's an amazing achievement. I think when I became president of the Nautical Institute, it's the same feeling that it's mostly men, but the NI is only turning 50. So we're a bit of a young organization compared to yours. I'd like to pass now and to hear from Tania.
Hi, good evening, Jillian, Sanjam, and the rest of the panelists today. I'm Tania from Sri Lanka, first female chairperson of Sri Lanka Freight and Logistic Association, the apex body of the industry. I think the first female to hold this position, not only just in Sri Lanka, but I believe it's for the entire Asia. I joined the industry without having any idea that it's a male-dominated industry. And when I got to know, I had the choice either to stay or step down and look for something else. And I decided to stay on, and I'm so glad I stayed on, because that has, by being in the industry and setting stepping stone for the others, I have also created and added the value for other females to consider the freight and logistic as a possible area or area that they can create their career path. I'm also an entrepreneur. I worked for a multinational for 16 years, then started my own business. Today, we are a 7.2 billion Sri Lankan rupee company. We have 3 joint ventures. And I'm so glad that I stayed on, and I have 30 years of experience in the industry, and I hope the young girls of today will consider looking at logistics as a career moving forward.
That's so inspiring. And listening just to your introductions is just a couple of key words just come to my head. This thought of serving, the ability or the desire to serve, the concept of serving, having grit and perseverance. the challenges that are faced. And many of you have stated that you had the choice to leave, or you were told you couldn't do something. So to have that grit, to have the perseverance, to continue on, to be these visible leaders, it really is very inspiring. I have a few questions. Actually, I'd like to start with about this concept of being first. So we are talking about a panel of all of these powerful women who are now firsts. We continue to see women who are first. We know there have been so many focused efforts over the many years to support women in maritime. Why do you think that we still see so many of these firsts for women in maritime positions? And maybe I'll go to Sadan first, if you have some thoughts on that one.
Thank you, Jillian. Actually, and you were at the beginning very rightly said that, you know, to actually discuss the first of this century, and you know, it is shame on someone, and who is that actually? I think that is the question. And what I can say is that I see a dilemma here, because I just said that in my introduction, that I was elected by, you know, fine shipping gentlemen of our industry. And you see that there is a determination in a group of, you know, executives who happens to be men. But when you look at the majority, you see this middle age and above top executive gentlemen. And, you know, to say something and to actually follow it is two different things. And everybody say that how sensitive they are, you know, on the gender or equality or diversity issues. But then I just tell them, you know, stop creating firsts, because I think I will be successful. And I am very happy that my fellow president right now, Sabrina Chow, is a woman too. So we prove as an organization, we really mean it. I was not a project. And now today in BIMCO, there is more women than ever on the executive levels and in the board of directors. So I say that, you know, we make a difference. So what I accept, I am waiting from the other gentlemen to see a determination that to bring women forward, because we have very successful shipping, high achiever women. It's all need to be come forward. So I think when, you know, if we have to finish this first things, then it should come to as a like nature of life in order. And we need, unfortunately, sometimes, you know, when they say women issues, there is no woman issue, there is man issue. And we have to sort that out together with them. Thank you.
And I like that comment about women issue, it's men issue. I have this concern. So I was having a discussion with some of my colleagues in the Nautical Institute, and we were talking about women on board ship and cadets and having cadet berths for females on board. And then they said, oh, we've got this issue with this woman on board the vessel. The master is harassing her. And I said, okay, well, so the problem's with the woman, not with the master? So, you know, where is the problem here? Where is the issue?
Yeah.
How do we start realizing that it is a normalization? And actually, maybe I can go to Valeria, because you have some really interesting firsts there as well within the Navy, and being married and having a family. So what are some of your thoughts about why we still see so many firsts for women in the industry?
Well, in my case in the Navy, well, I was the first one and the only one woman in my class, with 150 men in all the Naval Academy, and just I. And in the case of the Navy, I think that we still do not see women in some positions, for example, because to occupy certain position, we must hold certain ranks in the case of the Navy. But the real thing is that there are not limitations other than professionals and personal ones to reach the highest rank and position. I am nowadays, I am commander. I'm commander, and to be able to certain determined positions, yes, I have to study, I have to training, I have to be professional, but also I need time, because to have a different rank, I have to take determined time. And nowadays, in the Naval Academy, the percent of women or females that are increased a lot. In my case, when I was in the Naval Academy, just it was a limit of 10% to in. Nowadays, the 25% of students in the Naval Academy are women, are females. And I think that in the case of the Navy, the first ones is because we are going to making the steps with the time. And nowadays, we just need time to have more better positions.
So I like that thought about maybe a bit more time, and it's really impressive to think that, so you were the only woman in your class, and now you say you've got about 25% of the class are women. That's a wonderful change that we've seen, a very positive change.
Yes, when I was the instructor in Naval Academy 3 years ago, and it was incredible for me. It was incredible, the change of also in the main of everybody in the because it's like nowadays it's normal the presence of the females in the Naval Academy. It's not just when I was there in the Naval Academy, it was she's the woman. It's the woman, not the student, the woman. It's what's incredible. Nowadays, it's very comfortable to be this kind. Also on board the ships. First of all, in the ships, there was only in the large ships, because the accommodations were more easy to put a female on board. Nowadays, we have sometimes to be with a male in the same room. It was the thing that you have to do, maybe to have different positions.
That's wonderful, and it's actually so positive to see those changes that are happening, that are coming, and I really, really appreciate that. So thank you for that.
Thank
now, I'm going to break here a little bit, so we'll do a little bit of a pause so they can do the change. Yes, Harjit, you have some thoughts on this as well.
Having heard what the other panelists had to say about being first, and why we are having so many firsts in the maritime industry now, a thought which crossed my mind is that the ones who are first now did not suddenly become firsts overnight. When you look at what they have gone through, so they've been first. Like when we heard what Commander Valeria had to say, she was the only student. So actually the journey of being first starts much earlier than when you actually become the first in a certain position and you get a recognition. So that was the thought which I wanted to bring out, which becomes very relevant. When you reach a position, you are celebrated and you are acknowledged as being first. But the journey actually starts long back. Now, that when Commander Valeria was talking about her experience, I recollected, when I joined the corporate world, that was way back in 1984. At that time, in my batch of the management trainees who joined the oil industry, I was the only woman. And since I come from a finance background, the finance background is particularly not so male dominated, but still I happened to be the only woman who had opted for that oil sector. So I was the only woman. And after that, in every meeting and every conference, I actually got used to being the only woman around. So it's the journey now, when it's almost concluding at a certain level. It's actually small steps where you've been first in a lot of stages before you actually reach this position of being celebrated as first. That's all I wanted to say.
And that's a very good thought, and the process of the steps that you go through. And we've already got this thought that we're not there alone. We're being supported. We have champions out there who are really in our camp and helping us along. And each of those is the step on its way. And it's really a very good image, I think, really goes along with this path, laying that path before us. So I'm just going to pass to Sakura. If you could introduce yourself, a little bit about you and your first.
Thank you, Jillian, and nice to meet you. So in the port sections, I have been in this industry for more than 2 decades. In the port, I would say that the shipping industry is kind of very traditional, man-dominated world, but more than the shipping community in the port sections, I would say that I see fewer women in these sections, but I was lucky enough because I was really blessed. I mean, in my career, I just get so much help from men and women in these sectors. I know in these sections, I was introduced as the first women CEO in the port of Japan. And as you know, Japan is kind of very behind in terms of diversity and inclusion. But I didn't really realize that the female means so much to me until people put the level onto my shoulders. So this is the things that I didn't really mind. Am I first or not? This is just the path that I have been through. And I guess it is because the passion that I have for the industry. So really, personally, I didn't really mind first or not the first. It's not a big deal to me until people put the level on my shoulders and let me realize that. Anyhow, I have been in this port sectors for more than 13 years, and in the total shipping industry is more than 2 decades. That's me. And from February 2021, I changed my career into the APM terminals. And yes, I am the first female CEO in Japan. I'm very proud of being the first. But like I said, I really didn't mind to be the first or not. This is just a natural path I have been taken, and I'll be keep doing. And as a matter of fact, as you know, as an industrial average, the female ratios of the employees would be less than 10%. But in APM Terminals Japan, the female portion, the ratio of the female employee is more than 38% at this moment. The one reason is because I encourage the employment of female employees. And the second is actually, there's so many me at younger stage. I will just, when I see the people applying for this position, I just can't help telling myself, give them opportunities. That's what I'm doing. So when Jillian is nice enough to ask me to introduce myself, I mean, when I see all of you, when I hear all of your stories, I just see so many me inside of you, which means I'm no different than who you are, and we're just part of the courage or the guts to do a good job in this industry. And I think it is our duty to encourage more and more people, especially female, to come and follow the path. So I will hand it over to the floor back to Jillian. That's my self-introductions.
Thank you very much. It's a very good overview, and really wonderful to see you again. And it was also when I was speaking with Sakura, we had this idea of the path. Sakura does a lot of hiking and camping, and it's wonderful to think of where this path might lead us all. Thinking further on this concept of firsts and where we might be going into the future, what advice might you have for those who are still breaking into this concept, who are still at that stage of trying to find their way to be the first woman to, or to work in this scenario. So what is some of the advice that you might have? I think I might go to Sonali for this one, if that's all right with you, Sonali.
Yeah, thank you, Jillian. So, it was wonderful listening to all the ladies here and knowing their stories, and how we are brought up in different cultures, and different cultures will have their own degree of reservations. I mean, how conservative or how traditional they may be towards having a more gender diverse ecosystem. So, as I stated earlier during my introduction part, that when I started off, so there was a lot of challenge in the sense that my parents had to take a very difficult call. There were people who said that, I mean, what at all are you doing? I mean, you are putting your daughter into merchant navy, like she will be away out at sea amongst an all male setup. She will not have any of her family members around to to reach out if she needs, or if she's in an emergency. And of course, there are so many stories and perceptions that are related to men also in merchant navy. So, all that kind of cascades to the women also. So I felt it was more of more than the work or the education or the academy. The greatest challenge that we faced was dealing with the mindset. And like when we are starting off at a very preliminary level, starting off as a trainee marine engineer or a cadet or a trainee on the ship, people don't want to entrust you with the responsibilities. Every day is like you have to prove yourself. You have to prove your worth before you are being entrusted with a key responsibility in that area. And of course, over a period of time, say the initial phase, when people know that you are there to perform and you mean business, they accept you. But then it was like every ship was a different challenge. Initially, you have to take up the challenge, you have to prove your worth. And, somewhere it tends to pull you down mentally that, why every time I have to, really prove myself just because I am a woman. But then I have to tell myself, that I have personally chosen the path which was less traveled. So I know that there are going to be challenges in the way, and I should not be feeling let down to my own self. There is so much of responsibility on me. If I succeed, then I will be paving the way for so many other women who will be coming in for the generations to come. So those challenges were always there. And I think for the women who are going to join sea in the years to come, or who are already there, it is very important when we step there that we don't consider that we are a woman. We have to compare ourselves with any of our colleagues, and we have to perform at our jobs. You have to stop believing that you are a woman and that any privileges would be extended or granted to you. I think that initial phase, of course, would be there for you to overcome the challenges, and it is going to be very draining at times. But once you are able to prove that you are there and that you mean business, and that how efficient and competent you are, I think further than that, nothing else really matters. And I would not really blame the men, or what I would say that, the men react because they have not seen other women in those kind of roles. They may have seen women in more traditional roles, in perhaps maybe more domesticated or traditional roles, like say teachers, or maybe doctors, or people in the administration. But shipping and sailing meant that you are kind of physically disconnected with the world, and so many different and new set of challenges were associated with that role. So I'm glad, and just as Sakura stated, I'm very proud that I was the first one, and I'm extremely happy to know that today when we look at the trade union registrations today in India, only we have around 1,500 women who are already sailing, and that figure speaks for itself.
It certainly does.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are so happy that we have reached those numbers, and we hope our community grows. Thank you, Jillian. That was all from my side. Thank you.
There's some really great ideas for advice there. This idea of focusing on doing that good job, and being respected, and not not expecting to be treated differently, but to be respected. It can be very frustrating though when you go to, I remember going to every single ship I went to, I had to prove myself again. And it gets a bit tiring. But I bet, Tania, that you've had some real experiences around this as well, this idea of trying to make your way with your different roles and also being an entrepreneur. What are some of the bits of advice that you might have for women in this industry?
Thanks, Jillian. So when I started at the age of 18, I was completely ignorant. I didn't know. I came in as a management trainee. I had no idea of the industry. And I also came from outskirts. I didn't grow up in Colombo, so I had no idea about the industry. I think my ignorance did help me, because I completely put my head down and immersed myself in working hard and being the best I can be in my job. See, I stayed, before I became the chairperson of Sri Lanka Freight and Logistics, I joined the association. I worked in different subcommittees, maybe 15 years or even longer, because I became the chairperson only about 8 or 9 years ago. For two-year term, and it's also, I had 12 male colleagues sitting around the table, veterans in the industry, and when they asked me to take the chair, I was shocked. But I think because I put my head down and I didn't consider my job anything to do with the gender, right? And I think my advice to all women who work in male-dominated industry, whether it's logistic or any other, if you want to create a stepping stones, you just forget you're a woman and work really, really hard. And whatever it is that you want to be doing, right? It's that, there's a saying, the gender of the speaker is irrelevant to the value of the idea. So my advice is, please don't consider or compare yourself or consider about the gender. If you feel you are suitable, you're qualified, it makes you happy, and if you are committed, go for it. The passion should be there. If you have the passion, you will keep your head down and you will work hard, and you will have that enthusiasm, inquisitiveness, wanting to do more, and that you will reach. So I think that's the best way to go. Don't compare, don't bring gender into your career.
That's a very good advice. It can be really difficult when it's brought into our career on top of us. So we're often perhaps being identified, and I'm looking at Valeria, so she was the first woman, so it's kind of very, very obvious and very visual. But I love that idea that gender is irrelevant to the value of the content. That is a really good vision to go on, that idea of being able to cultivate confidence and to deal with the, I guess on the other hand, then we have to start dealing with this concept of imposter syndrome that is very, very real. I mean, the number of times that you feel you want to do something, but you have this imposter syndrome. Does anybody else have a comment that they wanted to bring on this before I move to the next question? Yes, Sakura first, and then Valeria. We'll do Sakura first, and then Valeria.
So joyful. So I found so much things in common. Like they mentioned about the passion and enthusiasm, and don't mention the gender in the career. I just can't agree more. I think this is a very positive energy here that I just got, and I get so excited that just being here let me feel like I'm not the only one, and I just find so much things in common. This is what I really would like to deliver to the younger generation, or to whom are interested in this industry, that people might put the label on your shoulders, says you're the first or you're whatever. But for us, we don't mind it. It doesn't mean anything. We are who we are. So if there's any advices that we can give to the new generation is to do what you like, to do what you want to do and keep doing it. If you feel passionate about something you really want to do, it really doesn't matter you are female or you're not female, or how the industry has been, because being in this industry and doing what you love to do will make a huge change to yourself, to the industry as well. So this is, I think, I'm putting this word to express how I feel about this. But I guess every one of us in this panel have the same feeling about it. We probably have different way of expression, but what we really want to express are all the same. Be passionate, do what you want to do and keep doing it. And thank you.
That's so true. The passion comes through. Valeria.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm really concord with both of you. I think that breaking barriers is like breaking inertia sometimes, obviously, but maybe difficult moments make, for example, in my case, make me more strong, or a more strong woman. And my advice for younger women in order to reach their goals is just fight for it and never give up in your efforts. And in my case, this is a career that brings many personal and professional satisfactions. However, many times it's become difficult and entails some sacrifice. Obviously, if you are a mother, no doubt. Yeah, but if you really have the vocation to be part, for example, in this case of the Navy, it is a very rewarding profession. And be present that life at sea is hard, but join the career with passion and great confidence. Never give up in the first or the second trouble you can have in the way. Instead, be double strong with your duties, and always, for me, it was very important, always hear the advices of all chiefs and all sailors. In my case, this is the principal advice that I give for the younger women.
That's wonderful. I think I'll move on to the next into the next question, actually, which is sort of that concept as well as having that passion and realizing that we're not alone. This vision of widening the path really can only be realized if we have women walking side by side, and we're not in single file. We're actually making that small step of those footsteps through the snow or that path in the grass. We're widening that out. How can we support? How can we, as the firsts, champion other women within this industry? And I think I'm going to pass to Harjit for this one first.
Thanks, Jillian. I think I've got a lovely story. It's not actually a story, it's a reality which I can share with all of you. Very recently, in March 2021, we happened to have a historic moment in India where the tanker vessel MT Swarn Krishna of Shipping Corporation of India had 14 brave hearts, all women officers, crew, who sailed out from the JNPT liquid jetty onto Vardenar. And this was not one solo journey, that voyage that they did. There were more than 24 such voyages done by the women, all women officers crew. So I think this is something which I wanted to narrate and bring out, that once you reach a position or you are in a seat of an authority where you can do something for someone, I think that is the least that should be done, because we are not only torch bearers, but we also want to ensure that there are many more who follow us. It puts tremendous responsibility once you reach a certain position that you do not fail, because there are plenty of people who are watching, and one failure can lead to a blockage of many more. So it becomes very important for those who are leading to ensure that they are going to be successful, they prove their worth, so that many more such women get an opportunity to come and join the line. So I think the responsibility is much more, and the light that we have ignited. Now, it's important that we should ensure that it is passed on to the coming generations as well. So we've got to be the torch bearers. That's my view on that.
That's a very good image of being the torchbearer and having that light and passing that light on. Sadan, I bet you have some very interesting ideas as well from all your experience, and you've done a wonderful job bringing a lot of women into BIMCO, as you stated already. What would be some of those areas, some of those ideas to help support or champion other women in the industry?
Dylan, as I said before, there are a lot of very successful women in the shipping industry. So first thing, we have to find them, reach out them, and bring them into the light to set an example. And also, you know, the more we are out there with a certain skills, we are much more powerful. And then, as Mr. Joshi said very rightfully, that we have to help and open the doors for the ones who are coming after us. That's for sure. And at the same time, since we are in a position to literally change things, that we also have to reach out our fellow men shipping people, because we cannot do this alone. And I think in 21st century, we are still firsts, or there are still few of us. It is shame on us, not only in shipping, in the worldwide. I am not accepting this anymore. And yes, of course, we can inspire, or yes, we can open the doors, but we need something much more than this, something tangible in order to stop this. And we need, that's why, a coalition of men as well. So we can go something just like what we do in environment, actually. You know, we can give pledges. There are some companies, yes, but it's not enough. We can have quotas because we have to finish this as soon as possible. Thank you.
And that concept of the coalition of men. Here in Australia, we have the Champions of Change, which is a very, very powerful group. And I really, just that whole term, that a champion of change, and that really is what we need to have. Yes, Sonali, I think you've got some great ideas, I'm sure, on this.
I think a lot has already been spoken, but you know, sometimes I feel that in 2019, the way we had the IMO's theme of women in maritime, and we also know that the United Nations, they have their SDG number 5, that is calls for gender equality. What I personally perceive when I look at the industry, you know, since I have risen in the industry only, and I mean, I'm alien to any other industry. I've been born and brought up in maritime only. So I personally feel that, you know, there is a lot of difference in what people wish to do and the policies that are implemented in place, you know. Like we have a decarbonization implementation plan in place. There is no implementation plan that, you know, how many women we need to have on board or what percentage of the workforce we are looking at if we intend to achieve gender diversity in the maritime sector. A lot of them may believe in it, but when it comes to practice and employing more women on board, there is, there is clearly a very different practice that is being put into place. You know, when they talk to women, they may speak very well of us. They may say that we believe in diversity, but I personally know, because, you know, again, as I stated, I have brought up in this community. So how people talk when they are, you know, it's an all-male setup, that, you know, whether they should really consider having women, or what is the point they are trying to prove, you know. So those things we may, unless there are changes at the policy making levels and we have clear implementation plans in place, it will be difficult to achieve that. And we also, at all the national levels and from various flag states, I think we need to have a greater mentoring program for women. it is of course required for men and women both, but I think women, when they, those, of course, those who are very passionate about maritime, it is a different ball game for them. But, we need to mentor them that they must realize what is expected out of them, or what is a life out at sea. A lot of them may feel lost when they join sea, and that in turn kind of, may not work very favorably in the other women who are willing to join. So that kind of the starting process of selection, the training, then, how you place women on board, and the mentorship program. All that I think is really required if you want to have an ecosystem. It will be more gender diverse.
And some really good, a couple of points, and that actually built on what Sadan was saying at the very end there about this idea of quotas. I know that is it's almost like a very dirty word. People don't ever seem to want to bring it up, but I love the way you made that link, that there's a decarbonization implementation plan, that we have, all of these goals that we're looking to reach for various things to do with the environment, to do with aspects. Why don't we have a goal when it says, how can we actually get to full diversity and inclusion if we don't have a plan that we're going to follow with checks and balances like we do with every other project plan that we put in place with every other element? So, the policy, making the policy clearer, looking at the hiring practices, the language that we use, calling out those microaggressions when they happen, looking at how we can focus and provide mentoring. So I think there's a lot in there, some really great thoughts. Any final thoughts before I close out this question, then we move on to the last?
One, I think the whole problem is we women needs to celebrate women. We need to celebrate the success of another woman, right? We have to move away from being threatened and all these unconscious biases. See, it's easy to put formula, have guidelines, procedure, policies, so many discussions. I think if we don't set an example, started helping each other and creating a path, we will still see this minority percentage of women involved in industries like ours. I think it's good to have these discussions, but I think we as industry leaders must be committed to it and should work towards genuinely and passionately and wanting to do that. Otherwise, it will remain in a discussion or in boardrooms, or we give commitment because if you're public quoted, you have to have certain quota, but we will not make use of the female forces to add the value into our organization or to the industries. So I think we as women have to have that mindset. I'm going to support someone. I will not feel threatened. I'm going to celebrate another woman's success.
Celebrating other successes. And you said at the other end that the not feel threatened. I think because we have been so long with women, it's almost like that's what makes us special. I really would love to get away from celebrating women first, because we just are doing our job, and that we can be successful and to celebrate what we're doing and the achievements that we have. So some really good thoughts. And the passion, really, the passion must come out. Yes, Harjit.
Yeah, Jillian. So I thought I'll just take on from where Sonali left. I think Sonali made a very relevant, brought out a very relevant point, that when we are talking about gender diversity and equality, it's becoming more fashionable to talk about it than to actually implement it. So it's become a fashion today to discuss these issues. But I must definitely appreciate the initiative taken by Sanjam and by the Maritime SheEO in trying to showcase the women achievers, because these are the ones who actually broke the barriers, took on the risks, had a little bit of an adventure within them to do what was not the trodden path, to walk onto those. So I think when you showcase such successful people, you are trying to encourage the next generation that yes, there have been quite a few before you, so that will give them the path to walk on. But what I was wanting to say is, we've got to, it's just not discussing these issues which is going to bring the change. While we say that, yes, we've got to be the change that we want to see, but simply women alone will not be able to bring this change. When we women sit together and discuss it amongst a women forum, it's not going to make any change in the society. So I think it's a question of attitude, it's a question of mindset. And the bigger question which comes up is acceptability. So there is somewhere, while on the face of it, like Sonali said, we'll all talk about it, but within a group of men, would they still praise a woman, or would they still say that, they'll try to find some, dig into some points, or so that acceptability is something which is very important, and that will come only with the change in mindset.
Thank you. And that mindset, I think we're hopefully making some inroads into changing that mindset. Sakura.
Thank you. When I'm listening to everybody else's comments, I just can't help nodding, and it just echo to everybody else. When Sonali and Sadan mentioned it's just like environmental, determinations, and Josh and Mrs. Josh mentioned about the mindset, and I mean, this is something that we need to, as an industrial leader, we need to ask ourselves, what do we do to contribute, right? I mean, for example, lately I do a lot of recruits. I hire a lot of people. People keep saying, okay, this is a position, and when we put the candidates to the comparisons, we need somebody get more experienced, and when we put the experience as a measurement to find the right talent, sometimes we see, yeah, we want to hire women, but there's so few women candidates are experienced or suitable for this position. So this comes back to the topics that this is a question to ask to ourselves. This is an investment toward the future. Diversity comes with a price. Yes, this is a chicken and egg argument. Lack of experience, so we would like to go for the experienced one who happens to be not female. But if we look at the future, if you see this as an investment toward the future, now this is a price you have to take as an entrepreneur, as a recruiter, right? So experience is an investment. If we can have the guts to hire some women with less experience and put them into the position, to give them the chance to educate them, to mentoring them, to have them experienced, then tomorrow you won't say the same thing again. So let's stop the chicken and egg theory. No experience, so we hired a man instead of women. Let's hire the women with less experience and have them experienced. So tomorrow we don't need to have this argument anymore. It's just like an environment, right? Oh, environment come with a lot of price. We cannot afford it. Yes, let's stop that argument. Let's stop the chicken and egg, right? Let's start from us. If we want to change people's mindset, change our mindset by ourselves. Give them opportunity. Start from ourselves. And that's the best action that we can take to increase the numbers of women that we can work side by side. And I think this is also the most powerful message that I can send to the industry. Hire more women. That's it. And give them more chance to get experienced. Thanks.
Here, here. Change that mindset. Hire more women. Sounds wonderful. Harjit.
Yeah, so I just wanted to corroborate what Sakura just mentioned, that when I gave the example of our tanker Swan Krishna, all that I did was I gave an opportunity to not only women, but I tried to demonstrate that women don't need, they are complete by themselves. So we had an all women crew. I think that should have completely shattered mindsets. So it's not like one woman seafarer, it's a whole. And generally the mindset that we were talking about, supporting other women, it's having 14 women together on board a vessel. People had doubts. People had, it's not only the acceptability, but there was also a question whether they would be compatible amongst themselves. So I think we've disproved that also. And it was not one solo voyage. Like I said, it was not just to celebrate the International Women's Day, but we ensured that continued till their contract period got over. So they did what any other man would have done, and we've demonstrated it. So that's now there in the public domain for anybody to see. So we've created a path for others to follow. I think this is what Sakura was saying, that you need to give them an opportunity. You give them an opportunity, they will definitely prove themselves, because I think women today are very conscious, they don't want to fail. That's all.
That's great. Actually, it was really interesting. I'm sitting here smiling as you were saying that, and they were even wondering if the women would get along themselves. I'm going, I wonder, back when they first started putting men on board ships, did anybody ever sit back there and say, I wonder if all these men are going to get along okay on this vessel? It's really interesting. This has been such a powerful bit, and Sonali put a great comment in the chat box as well about the fact we need to empower. We need to be able to see results, and it's a long-term investment, which really brings me to the last question that I wanted to ask you, and that is, if you could have one wish for diversity, equality, and inclusion in the maritime, just have one wish, what would that be? And I'm going to go to Tania first for this one.
I think my wish would be that the young girls of today, or as society as a whole, will move away from this mindset that maritime is more male dominated. We have proven enough times, and more times than it's needed, that women can also not just work, we can thrive in the industry. And I think my wish that we as first, we have gone through a lot of hardships to become first, and that while we celebrate this with among many others, that the women after us will take a cue of that, and they will be more involved, so that in another 5-6 years down the line, that we don't have to have such discussions, and we will have either equal or more number of female participation in industry. That's my wish for the industry.
That's a wonderful wish for that industry. Sadan, what would be your wish?
To be honest, I have too many wishes on this, but if I have to, pick one of them, this was a great, this is a great panel, and I'm very happy to be, among you. And but what I see, we still say we can do it as good as men, and please pick us. And this is all about the perception of men about women. So my wish is that this perception is disappeared. One way or the other, I really don't care if it is by force, out of kindness, or just a volunteer change, but it must change now. It's supposed to be changed yesterday, but at least it must change now. Thank you.
And I have a couple of really, I love that image about this. We can do it. Yeah, why do we keep saying we have this perception we can do it as good as a man? Why would we ever want to do it as good as a man? We'll do it the way we will do it, and it probably will be better. So this perception, very good. We must change, and we must change now. Thank you for that. Sonali, what would be your one wish?
I would like to see the maritime industry reach a state where we no longer have to discuss gender diversity and inclusion. That's all I would say in a nutshell. We should already have arrived, but of course we are arriving late. But just to reach a state where we no longer need to discuss.
I think that would be a wonderful wish if we could achieve that. It would be so worthwhile. And I look back at some of the wonderful women who've led the path, made the path before us back in the early 1900s, and we're still here having this discussion. So we need that path. We need that wish. Valeria, what would be your wish?
Well, obviously, in my opinions, men and women are not the same. No, obviously, we resolve problems in different ways. Yeah, but I think that in our profession, I consider that equality comes from the hand of the evaluating abilities and not gender. And by doing this, I think that we can find the opportunities and the gender equality. And my wish, and now is here, is that all ships in the Navy have accommodation facility for any gender in order to avoid issues related to the becoming an impediment for women to develop professionally and occupy any position on board. Because it is depend if the woman wants to share the cabin with the another man. It's a time. In my case, I have to share, but some women doesn't want. And I think that my wish is that the accommodations on the ships will be able for everybody.
Thank you, and that's a wish as well. I do remember when I was on the ship, and we didn't have appropriate accommodation, and we didn't have a head for the women, and so they had this sign outside, and they would flip the sign around, and if you were in bathroom, you would went to the heads, you flip it around and say there's a woman in there, and it was just it just wasn't appropriate. I think hopefully we're moving beyond that, but yes, that we have this accommodation, and it takes away the barriers. So that wish would actually take away any barrier that there would be to having this ability to have women on board. Sakura, what would be your one wish?
Well, I think when we were talking about our wishes, pick one, like Sadan said, well, we have so many, can pick one, right? I think this situation just exemplify that we feel somehow more or less uncomfortable. We're not satisfied, right? So we're distant between now and the perfection, the goal that we're aiming for. And the gap, just let us think, why there's a gap and how can we get rid of this gap, right? So when we're talking about our wish, I mean, this is just a situation to show that we're still so distant from where we want to be, right? So I am so encouraged by this panel, by so many powerful messages that every one of you are addressing. I think if we feel uncomfortable, if we're not where we want to be, meaning it's just like we are marching through the darkness. We want to go to a very bright morning. We want to get the sunlight, but still it's darkness. So instead of wish the light coming, the sunrise from the east, my message is that we are holding a torch, each one of us on our hand. The light is vivid. We cannot brighten the whole dark sky in front of us. Still there's a darkness, significant, but we're holding this torch, each one of us. So instead of wishing for something else coming from some God or unpredictable power, what I really want to say is hold the torch on our hand and join the force. When we have a substantial amount of this torch in our hands, and eventually we will turn this light sky into bright morning sky. The sun doesn't rise from the east. We will becoming the sunlight, and we will becoming the sunlight for the next generation. Let's be the east light, the first light. Let's hold the torch bright and high and keep doing so. And yes, instead of wishing for something else, we will become the wish, we will become the light. Thanks.
We have so much light coming out of this panel. It's just so full of energy and energy and vision. It's really helping to keep me very excited about this session. I would like to now go to Harjit and say, what is your wish?
Jillian, after all the women achievers have expressed their wish, and being the last, I have the advantage that I think there is a lot of commonality amongst all of us. And I'm sure you would have sensed that in terms of the background, in terms of the traits, in terms of the challenges that we would have faced, in terms of our character, in terms of our personality, there is a lot of commonality. So I'm sure these, all the women achievers, once we have such a panel, it's a very humbling experience, because all by yourself, you think you are the first, but then when you come onto such a panel, you realize that there are plenty of women achievers, and I think we've still not found all of them. There's so many of them who may have been path breakers, but it's a very, very humbling experience. So my wish, Jillian, would be that I wish we need to rise and grow beyond what is being discussed today. And I hope we very soon awaken to that morning when we don't have to discuss all this. I'd like to twist your question a bit by trying so that I say something different from what the earlier speakers have said, and not to be repetitive. So we're talking about equality, diversity, and inclusion. So I'd like to concentrate on inclusion. And I would say that we need to ensure that we start talking about inclusion rather than diversity, because inclusion in a way encompasses both diversity as well as equality. And the case for inclusion is becoming more important. And I think that would actually help to bridge the gender divide as well. Because the more we keep harping about the women issues, actually what we are trying to do is we are hyping up a matter. So we need to settle that down and bridge this gender divide. We should start talking about inclusion, because this is the one thing that would make a significance in the maritime sector. As the moment a sense of inclusivity comes in, the other aspects of diversity and equality would automatically be taken care of. Thank you.
Wow, what an amazing panel, and so many wonderful thoughts have come out here. I don't know about you, but my mind is just spinning. The key words here, you know, we started off with this idea of that being there to serve, of having grit, of having persistence, laying out those stepping stones, cultivating confidence, the focus on supporting other women, women supporting women. The fact that gender should actually be irrelevant to the conversation, this idea of moving to inclusion and away from thinking about gender diversity, the opening of the doors and shining of the light and passing that torch. I've just got so many wonderful images in my mind right now, and it's just so full of energy. So today we have been really celebrating women who were first, and it's a very humbling experience, as you say. There's so much out there, so much experience, so much to celebrate. Really what we've been doing, I think, is celebrating the fact that we had this opportunity to follow paths that were laid before us. And now we are starting to feel that responsibility to open up that path, to make it into a paved road so that more people can follow along with us. It really is, I think, by working together and supporting each other that we can create this future that we want, this industry that we want. And that one day, ultimately, hopefully we won't have to talk about this. We won't have to celebrate first. We will just simply celebrate. And I want to celebrate each and every one of you, and thank you so much for your time on this panel. It's been my pleasure to moderate this.